Okay, good evening. This is Dr. Gene Topper. This is Applied Marketing Management 380, live chat number 4. So there'll be one more, good evening, just starting here. There'll be one more chat next Tuesday, 5 p.m., and then the following Monday, the course will end at midnight. So I will again preliminarily grade Unit 4DB Friday morning. Um, but it won't be final unless you submitted your peer responses. And okay, so let's review. We're going to review again Unit 4 and then take our first look at Unit 5. Um, yeah, I have a fax machine. um, so one of the things that was a little discouraging is I think we had about half a dozen people um, still not recognize that you need a reference list uh, after at the end of the paper, each paper other than Unit 5 DB coming up. Um, and then I went back and checked, and at least half the people were at the chats. So, and multiple chats. So clearly, those people aren't paying attention, or they're just flipping the switch on, going off and doing other things, coming back at the end of the hour. I'm not going to do anything about it other than continue to return the paper and ask you to put a reference list in. But come on, let's if you're gonna attend the chat, at least pay attention. Otherwise, maybe you're better off listening to the archive uh, because we made it abundantly clear that you needed a reference list. Still having people not putting first names appears also. Um, so anyhow, so let's take our first look or a second look, I guess, because we did it last week in Unit 4. DB. So this is due this Thursday, primary post at midnight, at least 300 words. We're still getting, I got somebody today had a SWOT analysis that was barely a page. How do you get 3 pages out of that? I don't know. Well, I guess you don't pay attention. That's how. You know, what are rules for? That's just superfluous, I guess. Um, so there's 300 words on this. And this is for TurboTax. And I took a look at one of the early ones that was posted already, and it was for H&R Block. Okay. I know H&R Block, I believe, owns TurboTax, but different business, different brand. This has to be for TurboTax. Okay. Not maybe, not possibly. It has to be for TurboTax. And what you're going to do is take a look at the link. And tonight we're going to talk about distribution, but as I mentioned last time, we want to see here one of the places to do some research is what are all the places that TurboTax is distributed. So we have the direct channels. These would be where the consumer would buy the software directly from TurboTax, either in their website, their app, maybe an ad that they got directly or an ad that they saw and responded to directly back to TurboTax. Not many other options there. Okay. And then there's the indirect, which would be a variety of stores, variety of the store websites, Amazon, any other place you research shows that it's being distributed. Okay, so make sure you got a pretty good list, labeled direct, labeled indirect. Why do you think they'll use the strategy the company uses it? How does it benefit the company? Beyond it works, beyond it makes money. Think about the target audience. Who might they appeal to? Why does it work? Um, And there's no one right answer for that. If it sounds rational, you get credit for it. Then it asks you to, what would you do differently to distribute the product? So what I don't want to see are responses like lower the price, advertise year round. Those are not distribution enhancements. Those are promotion or price. If you change the nature of what the product does, that will be a product change, not distribution. So I recommend you take one of their channels. This is not the only way to do this, but and maybe tweak it. How could you broaden that channel, make it easier for that target for that channel to get access to it, or just add new channels? Okay, those all work. Okay. So get that in by Thursday. Peer responses by Saturday. Those should be 100 words each. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Unit 4, individual project. This has to do with pricing, which will be our final lecture next week. You're going to pick a shampoo. Must be a shampoo. Here I give you some flexibility. If you want to just comment on the overall brand, like Head and Shoulders shampoo in general, that's fine. Although I do recommend that you pick a variety. The reason for that is I got to believe Head and Shoulders pricing varies based on whether it's their most basic shampoo versus oily hair, thinning hair, dry hair, dry scalp, whatever. You're just going to be more accurate on pricing. So one place to do research is find out from different places that sell it, what is it going for? I need to see pricing range currently. I need to see a name for the pricing. If you use one of the ones listed here, I would stay away from penetration pricing. That's generally for new brands to get market share. I'm guessing no matter what brand you pick, it's not going to be new. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll find something that just came out, in which case penetration pricings might still be relevant. Skimming means you're not only high price, but you're higher than most premium brands in the category. Why? Because you've got something unique, you've got a loyal customer base, and they're willing to pay. It have to be a national brand. No, it doesn't have to be a national brand. I've been doing this for so many years. I've seen some specialty brands that may or may not have been local, but I can't recall anybody specifying that theirs was a local brand. First of all, that would be kind of inefficient. It's not like opening up a coffee shop locally. To get distribution of a brand shampoo in one market would be, I don't know, just doesn't quite make sense for me. But that's fine if that's. I'm more interested in their pricing strategy and how you're thinking about it. And then, who's their target market besides you, demographically, psychographically? You should be experts at that now. Do you need to consider any legal or ethical constraints related to pricing? So the first thing you're going to do is see if there's anything out there in your search that they were bad actors doing something wrong and the government got after them. I doubt it, but maybe there is. But at a minimum, I want to see some 2, 3, 4 actual laws that they have to obey in terms of pricing legalities, ethics. Okay. Um, then what new pricing strategy would you use? I'm not looking for radically different because these are established brands. I want to go on mute here. Maybe not. So maybe a tweak. Now, if you go to value based as your new strategy, well, no matter what you go to, tell me what the new price point is. You're going to get points off, even if you have a great logical change and support of why that's going to work. I want to make sure I understand how it's going to work. Are you going to raise the price, which is fine, as long as you have a support strategy of, well, we're going to tell them it's got this, or it's enhanced, or it's more the efficacy is increased, or maybe you're lowering your price to be more competitive. Okay, and then the rationale is, why do you think it's going to work? Again, both projects for Unit 4 need a reference list. Oh, one of the things I didn't see a lot of, or I saw a lot of omissions. No, people weren't doing cover pages. And the one that really gets me, I didn't take any points off for this. You do the 2x2 SWOT, and you don't tell me what the brand is. I have to read in the first paragraph, second paragraph before I even know what brand is represented by the 2x2 box. That's kind of irritating. I would like to do that for a client, and well, they would probably know it's their brand, but I don't know why you wouldn't put the brand in the box. Okay, 3 pages, at least 3 pages on this one. Not 2, not 1, not 2.5, at least 3 or more. Okay. Vegan ingredients. Okay. As long as you don't eat it. Yeah. You don't have to apologize. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as you don't repeat it. Okay. Now let's move on to Unit 5. First look at this. The first one is pretty, not going to spend a lot of time on it. It should be similar to every course you've had at CTU. It's the review of the course, at least 300 words. Make sure you have a paragraph, at least one paragraph separate for each question. And there's at least 3 bullets here. One of them has 2 questions in it, so, but you can put it all in one bullet, that one. It can be something, customize it. Don't just give me a copy and paste from another class. Okay. Come on, give a little effort here. And, peer responses. Okay. Now we go to the big one. Well, it's not big in points. It's still 125 points. But let me repeat, or first time, and then repeat. This one is not due till the day before the course ends. So if there's a major problem, what would that be? It would be no reference list. It would be that you picked a general cereal company like Kellogg's, Quaker, Post, and not a variety like Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes, Honey Bunch of Oats. You've got only one day, well, the same day, because I'm going to grade these on Monday morning. Now, what I've been doing lately is trying to do a spot check a few days before the papers due and see if I can give somebody advance notice. Hey, I noticed your Unit 5 IP is for Quaker Oats in general. That's not going to work. I need a cereal variety or flavor. Okay. So you're going to, this is about integrated marketing. You're going to do a lot of research on this. You're going to, I would go to their website first, whether it's part of the master brand website or its own website. Find out what they're saying on their website. Are you getting any kind of general message, general theme? Then you're going to go. I like to go to YouTube, but you can whatever you like to do for the different media they're using. What are they saying in their television ads, if they have any? What are they saying on websites? What happens in your search engine? What comes back? Social media, what are they saying there? A lot of times students like to put a link in there as examples. Magazines, PR. Okay. Take notes. And the biggest part of your conclusion of whether or not they're integrated in their marketing communications is from this. Do they seem to have a relatively consistent message? If yes, what is it? Or not? No, in TV, they talk about health. And in print, they talk about taste. And in radio, they talk about a promotion or whatever. I don't know. I doubt it, but that could happen. Don't forget this one. You're going to get points off if I don't see at least a few sentences. How is the product merchandised in the store? What does that mean? It means where does it appear on the shelf? I assume most of these are going to be in the ready-to-eat cereal aisle. Is it high, low, eye level, beginning, middle, end of the aisle? Is it surrounded by other cereals for that master brand, or is it if it's cornflakes, it's with other cornflakes? How many facings does it have? In other words, when you look at the box, you only see one box facing you, or do you see something, the same box above it, sideways, below? How many facings do you count? There's more prestige for a brand and more chance of being noticed when they have more facings. Okay. Any promotions going on? Anything hanging down that we call them shelf talkers, or let's see. Yeah, Frosted Flakes or Wheaties. Those are fun. Those are varieties. It's just that I don't want. It sounds like, well, who would do that? I guarantee you at least one or two students every term, probably because they don't attend these things or don't read stuff, will give me General Mills has a very similar message for their cereals. Oh, really? They probably got 40 cereals. They all have the same message? No, not a whole. No, the opposite. Not a whole company. A specific flavor. I don't know why you said not a whole company. Or a whole company. Frosted Flakes is not a company. It's a variety of cereal owned by Kellogg's, right?
No, I think my messages are coming through like delayed because I
Oh,
was listening and messaging because I didn't want to interrupt you. At
oh,
first, I was like, okay, I think you're talking about like Frosted Flakes or Wheaties because those are the first things that popped up off the top of my head when I was reading the information for the
yeah,
IP for Unit 5. And
yeah,
then as you were mentioning the other companies, I'm like, well, wait a minute, is it whole companies or like what are
no,
we doing?
no.
So I
It
was
makes
spot on with Frosted Flakes
right.
and
It should make
Wheaties.
sense because these whole companies have whatever 20, 30, 40 cereals,
Exactly.
and maybe 90% of them are integrated and 10% are not. Which ones are you going to pick?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Exactly.
Now, the only complication is like, let's take Frosted Flakes.
Uh-huh.
Give me the parent company. Aren't there more than one type of Frosted Flakes? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, in
I
other
think there's
words,
some generic brands like
yeah, well,
but
yeah,
but but
I don't
Tony
like
the
that.
Tiger, they're great. There's only one
Yeah,
of him,
yeah, but
know.
give me the master brand. Tell me who
I
owns
think
them.
it's General Mills. Kellogg's. No, I'm sorry, Kellogg's.
Okay, well,
Kellogg's
whatever it is.
Frosted Flakes. That's
Yeah,
right.
but there might be certain varieties, and it's okay that two or three of the master brands have their version of it.
Okay.
Like Cheerios, I know are Cheerios, but don't other brands, other cereal makers have O's?
Yeah,
Okay.
fruit O's,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I get
that's
it.
fine as long as you identify it's whose fruit O's it is or whatever. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Understandable. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Key message. Yeah. So give me support. The bulk of your paper is going to be support for this is the message. This is the common tone. These are the colors. Yes, they seem to have a character, whether it's cartoon character or a spokesperson or whatever, whoever's the main spokesperson, or maybe not. Or they always seem to talk about nutrition, or it's just fantasy. It's just silliness or fantasy or something. Um, uh, let's see. What do they ask you to do besides the obvious? Besides get you to buy the brand. Usually there'll be things like enter the contest, check out their website, ask your doctor about it, your nutritionist, those kinds of things. Um, let's see. And then finally, your final opinion and why. You don't have to go over all the different details you did before, but maybe a little summary of why you think. Okay. We're going to go out here. Okay. So before we move on to distribution, I'm not going to try to spend a lot of time on this, but um, we spent a lot of time on segmentation, and I wanted to at least leave with you the impression of how this stuff is presented, because you're going to see in a minute or two that over the years it's changed. It's become a lot more visual and what we call personas. What are personas? Well, I'm going to tell you in a minute. So Salad Master was a client of mine. They don't make salads. They make very, very high quality stainless steel pots and pans. I mean, really expensive. Okay. You can take out a loan to buy these. Okay. That's how expensive they are. And they also are unique, not because they're the only ones. There are other companies that do this, but it's kind of rare. You can only buy their product after you've had someone come to your house, prepare a meal, show you the product. So what you do is, if you're interested, you look up your local salesperson. They call you up, check you out. If they think you're interested, you say you're interested. They will come out and prepare a meal using these pots and pans for, I think, a group of up to 10 or so, whoever you want to invite. And then you can ask questions or whatever while they're making the meal or whatever. Okay. So they wanted to do a segmentation, and they knew they didn't want behavioral. And they didn't want demographic. Let's say, well, why? You're telling me these are so expensive. Isn't it just rich people who buy it? Well, it might be rich people who buy it, but not all rich people buy the same things. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're going to spend your money on pots and pans. In fact, I can make an argument you're so rich, you go out to eat every night or you have someone make the meal for you. Okay. They believe that there's a certain type of person who really is into cooking that will be interested in these. Okay. And it wasn't a new brand. They were around for years. And I actually did it in the US, Korea, Republic of Korea, not North Korea, and Philippines. I'm only going to report some of the data from the US. Okay. All right. So this is not data from that study, but what happens is, because it was attitudinal segmentation, in other words, we had probably at least 40 statements where each statement had to be rated on a 10-point, agree completely down to 1, disagree completely. How well the statement described their feelings About what? About cooking, cooking at home, confidence in cooking, importance of pots, good pots and pans, those kinds of things. Okay. And what the computer does is it sorts out the results. So, computer, give me a two-group solution, a three-group solution, a four, a five, a six, a seven. And each time it puts people in just one of those solutions. So in a six-group solution, everyone's in one segment, and that's it. Okay. Now you can start to see on this one, I know it's hard to read, that if you go to the right, there's four columns. That was a four-group solution. And you can see some of the columns have really high numbers. Some have relatively low numbers, like threes and fours versus sevens, eights. So you can start to see, okay, this works. People do differ on these attitudes. Okay. And then the next step is it tells you how big each segment is. You know, are we getting these really small ones or really big ones? In this case, 3, 4, and 5 here. No, we're not. But the real important one is what we call a migration table. In other words, what happens when we take people from a three-group solution to a four-group? And if you look at the rows here, you can see that group one, when it goes to four groups, it splits in half. About half of them stay with group one and half go to group four. Well, that alone tells you you would never stop at a three group because they break up. Same with group two. No, I'm sorry. Group two breaks up. You have like 57 people still in group three. So what we did with this particular study is when we got from 6 and then going to 7, hardly anybody went into the 7th group. So we stopped at 6. Okay. So what I did next is, based on the attitudes that I looked at, I ordered these from far left, least attractive target for this client, to far right, most attractive target. The computer does not give you the names of these. It's a back and forth. I'm first, and I give them my recommendations. They may tweak some of these, but most of these are pretty much mine. So the first, and then I present a chart like this where I have what are the key attitudes that really distinguish these groups? What are the demographics so they get an idea of the type of people, even though we weren't segmenting on demographics? What kind of brands of cooking utensils do they use? So the first one I call the disinterested meal maker. And the numbers here, they add up to 100%, only 11%. So these people are basically empty nesters. They're either singles or older people that live alone. And there's not a big interest in making dinner for, they're just generally if they would, they're making dinner for themselves. And they do make dinner at home, but it's not a big thing. They got to eat. And when they don't go out, they make dinner for themselves. And they express little to no interest in cooking. It's just a necessary thing to do. Okay. Thank you. That segment. Hello and goodbye. Next one, young and aspiring. These are young people too, but they're into their career and social life. And right now, cooking is not the number one lifestyle commitment to them. It might be in the future as they get older, but they got too many other things going on in their life to spend a lot of time learning how to cook well. Okay. Plus, they probably go out a lot. Okay. So, okay, thank you. You're not a target. Then we had the purposeful healthy cooker. Now, this one started to be a slight target because one of the things I didn't tell you, these pots and pans, and they're not Teflon. I mean, I'm not a metallurgist, but they're such high quality. You don't need to use any oil or butter or water at all. So that by definition is healthier cooking. So we found a group of people that like to eat healthy. They're not into cooking per se, they just want to cook healthy and they want to avoid fast food places. So, maybe there's an interest there. We weren't convinced because they're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on fancy pots and pans when they're not really into cooking. They just want to cook healthy. Probably not. Then we got the confident cooker. Now we're getting to people who, at different ages, demographics, um, they are pretty confident in their cooking ability. They really like to cook. It's an important part of their life and home. In fact, I think it was the second highest group in loving to cook. So potentially a good target. Okay. Then we had the experiential cooker. These are people that really into cooking. It's a creative outlet for them. The highest percentage, 56% of them love cooking. I mean, extreme love cooking. Skew a little more female. Okay, well, that's clearly a target. And then we had a group, tools make the meal. Now, yes, these people like to cook, maybe not as much as the prior two groups, but they were by far the highest group in saying that what you use to cook, pots, pans, utensils, does make a very important difference on the outcome of the meal in terms of quality and healthiness. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. We don't have to convince these people that utensils can make a difference, or pots and pans, whatever. Doesn't mean they're going to spend thousands of dollars, but you would think they would be a prime target. Okay. Now, back in the 50s, 60s, early 70s, we would stop here. We'd rank order these like you see here and give some conclusions and whatever. But it's kind of flat. It's just words and numbers. Where's the humanity here? So researchers now almost always for segmentation studies create personas. Personas are fictional characters, people, but not people in the actual survey. But we try to match their demographics, so what we show, and they give us a couple pages of expressing their attitudes about cooking and why they like it or don't, and utensils and whatever. None of that is made up. That's all based on data. The only thing made up is the actual picture. Okay. So what do we end up with? Stephanie, disinterested meal maker, and then she talks. Occasionally, I've had a professional voice do these different voices played for the client. Okay. Then we had Andy, young and aspiring. Okay. Whoops. And Mark, purposeful, healthy cooker. Nikki, the confident cooker, talks about what's important to her. Dolly, the experiential cooker. And you can see sometimes we painstakingly look for pictures. Well, she's got her smock on. She's got the lighted candle. There's something experiential about her cooking. Okay, she's into it. Then we had Sam, and you noticed he's next to a very high price grill and a very expensive knife. So we try to, okay. So this brings the data to life, gives a sort of humanity to the segments, very helpful for the creatives in addressing these groups. So I just wanted to give you an idea how this is presented these days. So any questions before we go on? If anybody's interested in these pots and pans, give them a call. Okay. All right, let's go to. So when you hear the term channels, oh, I'm taking a course in marketing channels. It almost always means different ways of distributing your product. Where are you going to distribute it? How are you going to distribute it? Who's going to help you distribute it? Okay. Yes, sometimes they talk about channels and media with traditional media, TV, radio versus digital media. But generally, channels mean distribution. Now, technically, any outside company, entity that helps you get the product to market, help you advertise the product, an ad agency or PR agency, is part of your channel system. Tonight, we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to talk about the outlets that are going to carry your product and how you get it there. So one of the key words that distinguishes between direct distribution and indirect is intermediaries. So if I make envelopes, that's my business. Yes, I can offer my envelopes on my own website. Okay. That would be direct or through an app or whatever. But chances are I'm also going to offer it through office supply stores, at least, and discount stores like Target or Walmart, and maybe Amazon or whatever. Okay. Because I don't want to just figure that everybody is comfortable buying the envelopes online with my website only. So generally, most companies will have multiple channels of distribution. Not always. I think if we have time, I'll give you an example of a client who only had one channel that I worked on. Okay. So when you start to think about who's going to be your partner aside for indirect distribution, there are things you have to work out. First of all, do we want to be online? These days, the answer is almost automatically yes. Is it enough to be online with the stores that are selling our product, or do we want to be in Amazon? Probably the answer is yes to all those. What about returns? Who's going to handle that, especially if it's online? Is it the online platform? Is it the store? Is it the going back to us, or a third party that's going to fix a piece of furniture or car or whatever? What about discounts? The only channel we really control are the direct channels. When we sell indirect, we can't dictate discounts. We can request it and pay them to discount it for us, but we have to work that out with them. Because for indirect distribution, a couple things to keep in mind. One is almost always we're not the only brand in the category. Okay. There are most likely going to be 2, 3, 4 or more brands, competitors. Two, obvious, you're not in the store or online with them, with the people. So anybody answering questions, you hope is pretty familiar with your product and would answer it almost the way you would answer a question. Now, it's not going to be perfect because you're more familiar with the product than they are, but you have to, train them and educate them. There are other legal things that you have to work out. I'm not going to get into, like, when do they take ownership? When do they get paid? If there's a fire in a warehouse, whose warehouse is it? Those kinds of things. But those are legalese. Okay, so here's some basic models of distributing a product to consumers for their personal use or home use. 0 level would be direct. They're getting it from you some way directly, either the website or an app or whatever, okay? 1 level means you're going to have a retailer class, not just one retailer. 1 level doesn't mean one retailer. It means retailers as a whole. And it can be different types of retailers. Going back to the envelope example, it could be office supply retailers, it could be discount stores, etc. Two level means I need somebody to help me get the product to the retailer and sign up the retailers and keep them happy. I don't have the time or the interest or the expertise in doing that. I make the product, wholesaler and retailer takes care of the rest. And then there might be three level. A jobber. What's a jobber? I'm sure you've seen in the grocery store many times people with shirts on that'll say, it won't be the name of the store, it'll be like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Frito-Lay. Those are jobbers. They work for the wholesaler and or the manufacturer. They come into the store 2-3 times a week to make sure it's fully stocked. These are products that are fast moving. You may not, it may not work just to stock it once a week because you're going to have out of stocks. Now, do most marketers use more than one of these? Yes. Almost all will have direct, zero level, and they'll probably have one of these other three. Sometimes they may have two of the other three. I'm not sure they're going to have all four, but is it more expensive to have three level than one level? Yes. Because you got to pay these people. But you've done the math, and to hire people to do it, train them, pay them benefits may be more expensive than just hiring an outside service to do it. Now, when you're selling the product to companies, like restaurants, office buildings, hospitals, nursing homes, janitorial services, whatever, that's called industrial or B2B markets. Same principle, 0, 1, 2, 3 level. My experience is, yes, some B2B is done on my website, but most of it is done 1, 2, or 3. That you have distributors. And not just one type of distributor. For example, when I worked for Purell, they would have food service distributors to distribute Purell to restaurants, cafeterias. They would have education distributors to get the product to colleges, universities, high schools. They would have healthcare distributors to get it to hospitals, nursing homes, etc. Then, if you don't have the time, the interest, or the expertise to do it yourself, you go to 2 level reps. Let the reps set up these distributors and take care of their needs. Okay. And if you're all over the country, all over the world, you're going to need sales branches. So that's considered 3 level. The sales branch, reps in general, and the distributors. Okay. Incidentally, when we talk about distribution, it's outgo, right? From the manufacturer to the end user. But it's becoming more and more important to also think about reverse flow, recycling, sustainability, being green. Usually you'll have dedicated people in your company working on this. Very important. Now, important question. How does the marketer know where to distribute the product? Well, it's not rocket science. They're consumers too. And in most cases, they know where they buy blank product for themselves, but they don't do it that way. Not because I'm a researcher. They go to a research company to get answers for them. And here's a 3-part question that I ask in almost every survey. And it really helps the marketer out. So whatever product category my clients in will ask this part of a survey. When you buy a product in category X, and we'll give the name of the category that, whatever it is, chips or cereal or whatever. We're going to show you a list of outlets where you can buy that category product. Check all of them as you can remember that you've used in the past. And you'll have types of stores. Sometimes you'll have names of stores, online, different types of stores, delivery, whatever. Okay. And you also have other, because you can't think of all of them. Okay. Specify. Second question, the last time you bought in this category, where did you buy the product? One answer only. And there could be other too. Now, hopefully that answer was part of the answer to the first question. Okay. Third question. If you were restricted to only be able to use one channel to buy this product, this category, what would be your most preferred channel to buy it? Now, in most cases, the answer will be the same as the second question, but not always. So, based on this question, you as a marketer should have a pretty good idea of where you want to distribute your product. There shouldn't be a lot of surprises here. Now, you can't be everywhere, every channel, every outlet of every channel. You just can't. It's very expensive. Unless you're Coca-Cola. Everywhere where beverages are sold, Coca-Cola is probably sold. Okay. So when you get a channel, a store, to agree to carry your product, they're going to want to know, you're going to want to know too, well, how many of my varieties will you carry? Like, let's say I'm selling ice cream and I finally got into Walgreens and I have 6 flavors that I sell. Walgreens says, we're happy to try you out, but we can only put 3 of your flavors in our coolers. What's 3? Now, you might say, well, just give them the 3 best sellers of yours. Not necessarily. Because you might find out that the top 3 sellers reach about 80% of the people in terms of them liking one of those 3 flavors. Like maybe vanilla chocolate chip. 80% will like at least one of those. What if you take out chocolate chip and put strawberry in? You might find that now you're reaching 90% of the people. Let's go with that. Why? Because you're reducing the chance of them coming into Walgreens, being interested in your in your product, but not finding a flavor they like. So you want to increase the chances. That's why you try to get the broadest reach. And you can figure that out through research, what the reach is. Okay. Now, you're going to want to be eye level in the middle. You're not going to get there right away, usually. You got to prove yourself first. Okay. So let's stick with the Walgreens ice cream example. Maybe I had the idea of, hey, Walgreens is so huge and they're everywhere. Maybe I should go to them and say, hey, Walgreens, if you just carry our ice cream, we won't sell it to any other drugstore except Walgreens. It's not likely to happen. I mean, the request may happen, but the answer is likely to be no. Thanks, but no thanks. Let me give you an example why. Why does Walgreens sell usually 3 or 4 brands of batteries? Like they'll probably have Duracell, Eveready, their own brand, maybe another brand. Why do they do that? Why do they have more than one brand? more inventory, more expensive. Why don't they just have, hey, it's just a battery. Why do you just carry one brand of battery? Why don't they do that? Anybody?
Consumer has their preferences.
Yeah. Not all people like the same brand of battery. Maybe, for most people, it may make a difference. So they don't want to lose the sale. What if somebody comes in and is a Duracell loyalist? Oh, they don't have Duracell. I'll just get it somewhere else. Oh, will everybody say that? No. Somebody will say, well, Eveready's okay. Okay. Same with the ice cream. I got to have Haagen-Dazs in there, or I got to have Ben and Jerry's in there. Yes, I'll have yours too, but okay. So most brands will use selective. They'll offer some of the outlets in a channel. By channel, I mean like drugstore channel. Maybe they'll have Walgreens and some local pharmacies, and they'll have selective discount stores, but not all discount stores. Now, Coca-Cola, again, is the intensive model. Oh, we're going to be wherever sodas are sold. Why? Because the retailer wants them there. Because chances are, whatever, 40, 50, 60% of the people are going to want Coke, and the rest are going to want Pepsi or something else. They don't want to lose the sale. Okay. Let's see. Usually there's not channel conflict, but with that I mean, well, let me give you an example. In Chicago, we've got about a dozen Toyota dealers. Now, Toyota, the parent corporate company, doesn't care where you buy a Toyota, as long as you buy a Toyota. But obviously, the individual businesses care. But there usually are restrictions on them. Yes, they can sell to anybody who comes in their store and wants to buy a Toyota. They can sell it to them. But they may not be able to put out their own marketing materials if they're in the north side of Chicago and the south side. They may be infringing on someone else's marketing territory. Okay. So you gotta observe those kinds of things. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let's talk about costs. This is a great chart. You look at the lower left. The cheapest distribution is internet. We just sell their product on our own website. That's it. I've had some B2B clients that just do that. And they've already got a website. It's no big deal to sell your product on your website. They use the mailroom to distribute the product. But if it becomes too big, then they need a telemarketing or fulfillment firm to send them out. Most brands will want stores where people are used to buying products in their category. Many of them will need distributors to get it to the stores. Value-added partner means if you're like you make the mobile phone, but you don't make the case. So you send the finished guts of the phone to the case manufacturer. They put the case on and then get it to the store or the distributor. And then you have a sales force. So as I mentioned earlier, the farther up this ladder you go, the more expensive it is. But you're going to do it if it still makes sense profitability wise. Some companies like AT&T do a lot of this themselves. They have their own trucks, their own stores, but a lot of brands just for the manufacturing business. Okay, so whoever you're using for your distribution, particular stores, you got to train them how to talk about their product. When someone comes in and say, Mr. Sales Manager in the store, who do you recommend in this category? Well, they're not going to always recommend you first. Incidentally, how do you find out about that? You have mystery shoppers going out and they come back and say, 35% of the time you were recommended first, 40% second, and then the other 25% third or worse. So let me ask you this basic question. There are two main ways to motivate salespeople to push your product. One of them is pretty easy. Can anybody give me one or two of them? How do you get stores, salespeople to push your product, recommend your product?
Price and quality.
Okay, I'll give you an A- on that. It's pretty good. Yes, if they make more money on your product may be higher priced, but if they make more money on it, they still may push yours ahead of a lower priced product that they make less money on. And the other thing is related to quality. If they feel that your brand is so well known and respected, that's less work for them. They don't have to convince people this is a great brand because in most cases, people know it already. So it's that brand equity that you have and good margins that are going to help sell your product faster. Okay. Channel conflict. Let me give you a real example here. So earlier I mentioned I have a client who has one channel. They make stoves, refrigerators, freezers, bar equipment for restaurants. And their only channel is a group of food service distributors that just sell their product in that category. And they've been with them for years and years and years. So what happens is you look them up on the website, you say contact Joe Smith of R&K, restaurant refrigeration or stove. And that's what they deal with. So one day after, 30 years doing it this way, the CEO comes in the marketing department and says, I'm noticing a trend here that I'm reading a lot of restaurants will buy big equipment, yes, freezers, bar equipment, on Amazon. We need to be on Amazon too. Oh, we're not getting rid of our distributors. We still love them. But Joe, you're going to have to, break it to these distributors that we're going to be adding Amazon as well. Okay. They might be a little nervous. But one of the ways you can position it is, look, if you've been working with people for 10, 20 years, they're going to still work with you. And you can almost look at it, you're going to raise awareness and affinity for your product because it's going to be so much more known through Amazon. Maybe they're going to, because of the nature of the product, they're going to still want to buy from you. See it in person. Okay. So hopefully that works out. But whenever you add new distribution channels, that could be a potential problem. Okay. Generally, though, there's not conflict. The more of your product they sell, the more money they make, the more money you make. Everybody's happy, hopefully. If they're not doing the job you expect, it's like an employee. You could say, you know what, it's not working out. We're going to have to terminate in 3 months. Okay. Another thing you look for from the mystery shoppers is how do they talk about your product? Do they describe it like you do in your advertising? Or do they talk about it completely different than what the advertising says about it? Also dependence on, okay, I don't know if you have any McDonald's people. McDonald's, I believe, at least when I worked on it, always had just one vendor for their French fries everywhere across the country, whether it's Simplot or Weston Lamb, is that what it's called? Why do they do that? Well, because they get a better price. Because all that company's supplying is McDonald's. They're not giving any other fast food chain French fries. Now, the danger is if McDonald's suddenly gets disenchanted with your product, per the contract, they're going to terminate after a certain number of months. Now they're going to have to quickly find somebody replacement, and you're going to have to find a replacement. But as long as it's going on, it's a great deal, right? And of course, the other big change in distribution is more and more digital distribution, right? Buying online. There's still stores around. Okay, I think that's as far we'll go today. We're going to do pricing next week. Any questions, comments? I'll send everybody another text at the end of the week. Just some reminders going into our final week. And anything else? Anybody else? Oh, have a great holiday, everybody. Have a safe, as they say, safe 4th. Enjoyable 4th. Happy birthday, everybody. You don't
All
look
right,
200.
have a good one.
All right. Have a good holiday. See you next week. Bye.